Welcome to the Ag Inspo podcast, where we delve into the dynamic world of agriculture, uncovering the stories that inspire, empower, and drive change. Join hosts Rena Striegel and Ron Rabo as they explore the journeys of farmers, entrepreneurs, and leaders who are making a difference as they navigate the critical work of transitioning their operation to the next generation. From navigating family dynamics to developing the next generation of ag leaders, we'll bring you the insights and inspiration you need to thrive in today's ever-evolving agricultural landscape. So whether you're a seasoned industry veteran or just starting out, get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered as we learn from best practices and a few colossal failures on the Ag Inspo podcast.
Well, good morning, everybody. We are very excited for this episode of Ag Inspo. One of the things that I love to do is troll the social media platforms to find people that are doing amazingly cool things. And that is how I found our guest today. And I have to admit that although he's a very handsome man, it wasn't his face that captured my attention, but it was the very, very shaggy faces of the animals that he raises. And so today we're really excited to have Patrick Archer with us to talk about what he and his partner are doing in Texas. But before we get into that, Ron, I just want to say good morning to you. And we have had a very busy week. This is one of the few weeks of the year that Ron and I actually get to spend almost an entire week together.
It was a total blast, wasn't it? We had a blast at Top Producer, and just the interaction that we're able to have there with the outstanding people that are there is it's amazing. And the weather was chilly like it was everywhere else. And of course, I neglected to bring a coat there because I thought, well, why do you need a coat when you fly from Denver to Kansas City? It was because I didn't have room in my suitcase, but that's my excuse anyway. But we spent time together and we had a blast. We were able to do a podcast there that's going to be out here soon. That was really, really fun. We got to do it live instead of on the computer like this. So that was kind of a first for you and I.
Yes.
And we got to spend some time together, like you said, and interact with some great folks. So here we are back in our own haciendas here. And we're going to learn about something today that I know so little of anything about, including how to pronounce the word. And so I'm really looking forward to. I know that before we opened this morning, our guest was talking about how god awful cold it is in Texas, and so that's a matter of perspective, I think.
Well, Patrick, with that, we've now done all the little teasers about what we're going to talk about today. So I would love if you could just take a couple of minutes and just introduce yourself and introduce what you are doing in Texas. That is, to me, both remarkable and very inspiring, quite frankly. So would you mind giving us a little bit of an intro to you?
Absolutely. Well, first, Ron and Rena, thank you so much for including us in this podcast. It is an honor and a thrill to be able to talk about what we're doing here. My name is Patrick Archer, and me and my partner, Christopher Jones, we have Texas Poitou donkeys. And Poitou donkeys are a rare French breed draft donkey that is critically endangered. And we are doing everything that we can to help promote the breed and preserve the breed so it's around for decades and centuries to come. It's a breed that has had a lot of challenges, especially here in the United States, and it is just a labor of love. It's a passion that started about 16 years ago, and it started off as a complete fluke. We have some friends that have exotic game ranch, and we were driving around their pasture, looking at deer and antelope, and drove past this big old hairy donkey. And we had been raising miniature donkeys at the time, so I knew about a Poitou donkey, what it was. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would ever see one in person. But sure enough, there it was. Her name was Fifi, and they had bought her from an exotic animal sale. And I immediately asked if they would sell her to me, and they said yes, and I took her home that night. And that
Wow.
started a incredible journey, um, trying to learn as much about the breed as we could, trying to acquire breeding stock. And that has taken us everywhere from California to Florida to Canada, picking up a donkey here, a Poitou donkey there. And that has gotten us to today where we have 30 Poitou donkeys that are actively breeding. And we are the largest breeding herd in the United States. So it's been a crazy ride, I will tell you, but one that we are incredibly passionate about, and one that we want others to get involved with. It's really our main driving force, is trying to get people, number one, to actually understand that this breed of donkey exists. So many people don't even know what a Poitou donkey is, or that it's on this planet. And so just really trying to educate folks as to what the value of this donkey is, what its history has been. And it's a fascinating one, and what challenges we face as breeders here in the United States.
Awesome. Well, I think that is incredibly both adorable and very appropriate that the very first donkey that you bought was named Fifi,
I
and
know, right?
she is a French breed. I think that is amazing. So of course we have started the story with Fifi. That's perfect. So I would love to know what your history with agriculture is. Obviously, you've been doing this for a number of years, but tell me how it came to be that you own and live on a ranch in Texas.
Yeah, so I have to kind of take it way back. My father, when I was a kid, always wanted me to have experience with animals of some sort. We lived in inner city Houston, and we're raising homing pigeons and quail. And I always had a huge love for animals. Then life happened and moved around the country. Ultimately ended up back in Texas, but living in the city of Fort Worth. Um, uh, we had a small piece of property, about 12 acres. It was a place where we could get away on the weekends and just kind of decompress. And I started to pick up an animal here, an animal there, and we kind of experimented with all sorts of things, but ultimately kind of ended up with miniature donkeys as something that was fun to raise, easy to manage. And I just always had an affinity towards donkeys. We we ultimately moved from Fort Worth and bought some adjoining property here. And we're on about 180 acres here in Texas. The vast majority of that is in hay production. We produce coastal Bermuda hay. We also raise Spanish goats and fallow deer, and then a variety of poultry, and barn cats, you name it, we've got it. And we've been doing that for about 12 years now, producing our own hay, and raising the animals. But the main focus has been hay production and Poitou donkeys. The deer and the goats are more of landscapers for us. A big chunk of our property is ravines and creeks, heavily treed. That is not really usable acreage for hay production or pasture. So the deer and the Spanish goats really just keep the property clean for us. And we're able to sell offspring and make a little bit of money that way. But really, they're something pretty to look at too. But that's kind of, in a very in a nutshell. I've always been an animal lover, and finding this incredibly rare breed has been really, really special and has allowed Chris and I to have the most amazing experiences and meet the greatest people, from geneticists to our partners in France, some celebrities. The Poitou can garner a lot of attention just because of their looks and their demeanor. They're really special animals.
Yeah, so let's just talk about them for a little bit, because I mean, they are visibly very unique looking because they have long hair, which is very surprising to see on a donkey, particularly one that is raised in Texas. So why don't you talk a little bit just about the breed and its history and some of the uniqueness about it, because it is really a unique animal to look at, particularly when you see the babies and they're born with their ears all curled, which is so cute. So,
Yeah,
so just talk a little bit about the breed itself, and then we can get into maybe some of your superstars, because they certainly have they've become a little bit of celebrities on social media in terms of the ones that your followers seem to really want to see more of. So maybe we can talk about some of your individual animals as well.
sure. So Poitou donkeys originated in France, and their history goes back centuries. And it's important to note that really the Poitou donkey's only function was to produce the perfect mule, the best mule that money could buy. And so they were using Poitou jacks or stallions on a draft horse, a French draft horse. Moulassier is the name of the horse, which translates to mule maker. And they would produce these very, very large, very powerful mules. Poitou donkeys have just an incredibly low-key, sweet demeanor. And that's something else that they passed along to these mules that they produced. So they were incredibly trainable. And prior to industrialization, if you had a Poitou mule, they're actually a Poitou Vin mule. I'm sure I'm butchering that French, so forgive me there. If you owned one of those mules, you were considered a wealthy person. They were highly, highly coveted pre-industrialization. When tractors came along and a couple world wars, French Revolution, the numbers got shockingly low. So in the 1970s, there were only about 45 Poitou donkeys remaining in the world. And right now, the number is kind of teetering around about 25 to 2,800 worldwide, and about, I would say about, this is a guesstimate, about 100 Poitou here in the United States. Some of those not being pure, like they would be considered a high percentage Poitou, but the numbers are still very, very small, especially here in the United States. So what the French did back in the 1970s, they really organized, and they brought in a donkey from Spain that had similar characteristics, and they did a very intensive breed up program. So they would breed the pure Poitou jack to these Spanish donkeys. And after 6 or 7 generations, they felt like they had a pure Poitou on the ground. It took a long time to get where they're at today, but they've been very, very successful. Poitou are large donkeys. Poitou jack, the minimum height would be about 13.3 hands up to around 14 hands. Females a little bit smaller, about 13.1 hands. They are incredibly heavy boned, and that is something that was prized because that was passed on to the mules that they made. Their hair coat, which is probably the most, recognizable characteristic of the Poitou, nobody really quite knows where that came from. Poitou, France. Poitou is a region in kind of southwest France, is a little bit marshy. And so there's speculation that the hair coat was developed over centuries to protect the Poitou from mosquitoes or bugs. The French were really keen on the hair coat and bred heavy hair coat to heavy hair coat. And so you can see still today Poitou that have we basically just call them dreadlocks that are almost reach the ground. And it's incredibly striking. They almost look prehistoric. And what happens with Poitou, they don't necessarily shed their hair. The old hair will twist on to new hair growth, and the coat just gets longer and longer and more matted, and it forms these dreadlocks. Not all Poitou carry that heavy dreadlock coat. And for us, what's under the hair coat is much more important than the actual dreadlocks themselves. We are trying very, very hard to breed for conformation standards. And we follow very closely French conformation standards. We want to be sure that we are producing the healthiest, best foal that we can.
That's excellent. So I am curious as to, what the Poitou breed is used for today. I mean, obviously we've got sections of agriculture and certain, there's certain places in the US that mules are still used. Do you find that they are still used to produce mules, or have they at this point in time really just become more of a unique addition to someone's farm?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Poitou, still today in France are producing mules. Was lucky enough 2 summers ago to travel to Poitou for their national show, where they exhibited the donkeys, the Mulassier horses, as well as the Poitevin mules. They are used generally for light plow work. They are plowing between grapevines and vineyards. They're doing some forestry work, pulling out, logs from the forest, that kind of thing. And they are, many are pulling carts, used kind of as, carriages, large carts. Here in the United States, because the numbers are so small, really our focus has really just been on trying to preserve the breed and getting the numbers up. We are very, very aware that, it's one thing to have a curiosity in your pasture or something unique or cool to look at, but they need a job. They need a reason to exist, right? So not, of course they are lovely, beautiful animals. But we would love to get to a point to where they are producing mules here in the United States. There is quite a rabid, excited mule market in the United States, whether that is dressage mules, whether that is for hunters and, pack mules. You kind of see a little of everything. And to be able to produce Poitevin mules here in the United States would be really, really cool. Just kind of to piggyback on that, we are lucky enough to have a Mulassier mare here in Texas at our farm. She is the only one in the United States, and she is currently bred to a Poitou Jack to have a Poitevin mule this May. So it'll be one and only here in the United States, and we are hopeful that through that process and having a successful mule foal, that we will be able to generate a lot of interest and be able to really kind of set fire to that mule market. So folks that maybe aren't interested in raising Poitou per se, might be interested in using Poitou semen for mule production. And that's something we're looking really, really closely at, and we're really, really excited about what that future may hold.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have to
I
say,
was reading.
go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry.
Rena. No, I was just going to say, Patrick, to back up just a little bit, you talked about the importance of having a healthy foal. And I was reading up on the Poitous and read a fair bit about the fact that that was not always the case, that it seemed like there was a lot of dysfunction in the breeding program. And I mean, what would you attribute that to? I mean, it just struck me a little bit odd, because when you're breeding any other kind of an animal, you want to make sure, and I think they did even in those days, made sure that those animals lived in a healthy environment. But that was not the case with the Poitous. And so do you have any kind of information on that as to why that degradation occurred?
Yeah, so the history of Poitou is a little sketchy. And you've probably found that you can't just go to Google and learn a ton about Poitou donkeys. The information just really is scattered, or you find like the same information over and over, just some, kind of uh cheesy Wikipedia stuff. It's a hairy donkey, it's from France, and that you don't really get a whole lot of details. So I think, you know, Poitou in France, I think there were challenges in animal husbandry. And I don't want to knock anybody. I just think that for them back in the day, the importance was producing mules. And I think that possibly some of the care of the donkeys was not where it should have been. I think also, breeding for hair coat may have ignored some of some conformation issues that may have been there that were overlooked. Um, she's got a really long hair coat. Boy, we like that look. But, maybe her conformation wasn't great, but they kept breeding her anyway. So fast forward to Poitou in the United States, and we have found the hard way, almost everything we've done with the Poitou has been trial by error. We've had some amazing heartbreaks with this breed and successes. So we have found that Poitou foals are incredibly fragile, and that there is a lack of genetic vitality. They are not really getting the antibodies that they need from the genets. Colostrum is kind of it's not passing along anything beneficial to the foal. So in order for us to combat that, we give all of our foals plasma within 48 hours of birth. And that has really been a game changer for us here.
Wow.
Where our foal mortality prior to giving plasma was at about 40%. We would lose about 40% of our foals, and now we just don't.
Amazing.
It has really been incredible, and that we learned that with our amazing equine vet. His name is Dr. Keith Youngblood. And now, although they may not all necessarily need it, they all get it. It's just an insurance policy for us. The whole kind of breeding process is long. It may take months to get a genet in foal. She may carry a minimum a year. Sometimes it can go close to 14 months. So you've waited a very, very long time to get a foal on the ground, and to lose a foal after all of that is devastating.
Yeah.
So we do everything in our power to make sure that we are, even though the foal may be incredibly healthy at birth, we we just don't take any chances.
Yeah.
And
That's interesting that they have a variable gestation. You know, because
yes,
you hear that in other types of mammals, like if the condition isn't quite right, like an elephant, for instance, they
right.
can just hold that baby until the conditions are correct, and then and only then do they go into labor. So that's very interesting that you have such a variable. That would be misery. Because if
It
I'm
makes
like, if that baby's supposed to be here, I don't want to
yeah,
wait an extra 4 months for it.
yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
of sleepless nights. So with every foal born here, we are present for the birth. Because again, there are challenges with Poitou and especially with foaling. So some of the challenges we run into are the foals are so large because the gestation period is so long that they can get hung um, during the birth process. So we assist in a lot of births. Generally, the foals get hung at the hips. So
Mm.
we help deliver. Also, the foal can get caught up in the amniotic sac and suffocate. So we're there to make sure that's cleared away. Also, it is not uncommon for Poitou genets to be foal aggressive, which is so weird because they are
Interesting.
the most peaceful, gentle, loving animals, but for whatever reason, they can be foal aggressive, and by that I mean the foal is up trying to nurse, and the genet is kicking it away, which is terrifying to see, and so we are there to kind of work through that process to ensure that we don't have a bottle baby.
Hmm.
But there are challenges, but we are there for every birth. And again, it's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of getting up in the middle of the night several times, just making sure that we're not missing anything.
Yeah. So where do you pull the plasma from? Does it come from the mother, or are you just pulling from the herd? How tell me about that process, because that's actually really fascinating and also a really cool discovery. And I don't know whose idea that was, but that is a great way to supplement if colostrum is not there, to be able to still get a lot of power packed nutrients into a baby.
Yeah.
That was a really cool innovation.
Yeah, like I said, it really was a game changer for us. So the plasma we use actually comes from a farm in Kentucky, um, where they are exposing mares to all of these kind of equine diseases and pulling their plasma. So it is something that we get through our equine vet, and he comes out and administers that plasma. So, it comes in like a big IV bag. It's frozen, so we thaw it and then we give it to the foal. Um, and again, we do that with everyone just because it's really been a game changer as far as foal mortality here. In France, they do not use plasma, and foal mortality is still very, very high. And it's something that the French are starting to pay attention to kind of what we're doing here
Wow.
with the plasma. So it's again, I credit Dr. Keith Youngblood. He's just an amazing equine repro vet here, and we're lucky that he lives just a few miles down the road. Not only our vet, but also a great friend, and he's very, very invested in the Poitou. Has probably more experience with Poitou donkeys in the United States than any other vet. So we're really lucky.
Wow. So,
So
but
is
let
the go ahead,
go ahead,
Rita.
Ron. No, go
Well,
ahead.
I'm just going to say I'm just curious. I looked at some pictures online, but I'm also looking at the picture you have in your background. Uh, has there ever been a use for the hair? Have they ever taken the hair for that? Is it something that you guys have looked into, or what's that? I mean, I'm assuming if you would take it off like on a sheep, then it's going to grow back the same, but maybe not.
Right. So great question. We get this question a lot from on social media, people that follow our social media. So especially from spinners that they want to be able to spin Poitou hair. Unfortunately, once that hair forms those dreadlocks, it is so damaged. And you can cut those dreadlocks open and it's just full of sand and grit. So the hair is just really damaged. The only thing you can do with it is felting. So felt little animals. I'm not a felter, so I don't know, but we have given Poitou hair to folks to try to spin, and it just wasn't successful. But they have been successful with felting. It Here in Texas, because we are brutally hot in the summer, it's not rare for us to be over 100, for 30 days in a row. We do groom some of our Poitou just to make I want them to be as comfortable as possible, especially the really heavy coated ones.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have grocery sacks full of Poitou hair. So if anybody wants to give it a go, let me know.
Well, I was kind of curious about that too, that because of your climate in Texas, when it gets hot, does that affect their their ability to grow? Does it affect their do you have to change the nutrition on them? Do you have to make sure that there's a lot of shade for them? Or how does, I would think that sure, it's gonna help with the bugs like what you mentioned. I'm sure that has to be a huge benefit, but I would have to think that just the amount of heat that they're trapping inside of their body would be substantial.
Right. So what we found, and this is pretty much for all livestock in Texas, they're going to stick to the shade during the day, and we just ensure that they have adequate cover, whether that is barn or shade trees, and access to a lot of fresh water during the summer. We found not just a Poitou, but all of our livestock here, they're gonna stick under the trees most of the day and do most of their feeding at night or once the sun goes down. Again, we do groom some of our Poitou, and not their entire body. We leave hair on their legs just for fly protection. But most of their torso, I use pretty industrial sheep shears to get the job done very quickly. But they tolerate the heat well. They don't love it. I don't love it. But we haven't found that it has been detrimental to them here in Texas. At their core, Poitou are donkeys, which are incredibly I don't know, it's weird. Poitou are fragile and yet they're donkeys, so they have very kind of basic needs. Low protein, high fiber forage, which we use coastal Bermuda, which is not high in sugar and protein. We do not grain. Donkeys don't need it. It's detrimental to donkeys unless it's a special case, maybe an elderly donkey or one that is recovering from an illness. But other than that, it is fresh water and either pasture or coastal Bermuda hay, and that's about it.
Wow. Wow. So I'm interested in, donkeys, you see a lot of donkeys now being used more like a livestock guardian animal. Are these donkeys, do they sort of they have that personality trait where if something's coming, they're going to make sure that it doesn't get where it thinks it's going? Do they tend to be a little bit protective?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's one that we get a lot. So Poitou are, in our experience, horrible livestock guardians. And I say that they're so kind of chill and laid back. Um, they're, they can't be bothered really. So let's say, for example, we have a coyote running across the pasture. Their Poitou's livestock guardian, what they do is they will turn and face it and they will walk very slowly towards it. Well, a coyote is, they're like, that's not right. They should be running, not coming towards me. And it goes on its merry way. But to have Poitou actively chase down an animal in your pasture, it's probably not going to happen. They're just too low key for that.
So they are truly the gentle giants of the donkey world then.
They really are. And I tell you, I say this a lot. I wouldn't do it if they weren't. It is a lot of work, and but they are so incredibly sweet. And just, if you ever get an opportunity to be around one, you find out very quickly, you're like, wow, this is really cool. These are just really special animals. And yes, they're just sweet, lovable animals that, again, that was the trait they passed on to the mules they produced.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So
I'm very. Go ahead, Ron.
I just have an economics question. So you got to buy these.
Yep.
You have a tremendous amount of work, dedication, time that you are putting into them, and certainly much more than a standard mule that you would. I know you had mentioned before that pack mules, things like that. That these obviously require a whole heck of a lot more work than just raising a traditional donkey. And so, is there a way that you have found that either now or in the future you would be hopeful in figuring out how to monetize this, or are most people that are raising these doing it because, like you, they have a passion to raise them, and you're trying to save the breed, which is clearly working, and I mean, something that I think carries tremendous value outside of that piece. But when you have livestock, I mean, it's a commitment all the way around. And so, what have you discovered in that regard?
Yeah, so it is. That's just a really great question, and one that I will try to answer the best that I can. So we have found that raising Poitou right today is not necessarily a money-making venture. And I approach it that here's this gorgeous animal that has gotten in dire straits. And the reason they got in dire straits was because of human beings. And it's going to take human beings to pull them out of it. They are such special animals that they truly deserve to be here. They have a place. We do sell, but the money that is made in selling Poitou has already been spent years ago. And either just farrier care alone is costly, just day-to-day husbandry. The money really adds up with breeding. So we're not in a place where we are getting rich raising Poitou. We are hopeful that we will get to a place where we are able to sell Poitou semen to mare owners to produce mules by collecting our pure Poitou jacks and selling frozen semen. That is certainly, hopefully, a revenue stream for us in the future. But right now, with the numbers being as small as they are, it is still really just about saving this breed. And not only us, but the handful, and it is a handful of other breeders here in the United States, I think have that same philosophy that, yeah, we're not going to get rich raising Poitou. That's not what it's about.
Mhm.
We gotta do everything we can to save the few that are left here in the United States. Import export is incredibly costly and very difficult to import animals in from France. So there's not this big influx of genetics or animals coming in from abroad. Also, uh, artificial insemination with Poitou has historically been incredibly difficult. Um, it with frozen semen specifically. Poitou genets do not react well with the extender they use with when they thaw the frozen semen. Their bodies tend to reject it. And so it can be done, it has been done, but just a handful of times worldwide. So the French don't do it just because it's not very successful. And we are attempting to do it more and more here in the United States. There is a breeder, her name is Barry Fisher, and she's in New York, or excuse me, Vermont. And she's been successful using frozen semen a few times. So, but it is costly. It's a process and not something that, you're able to churn out Poitou foals left and right. It's an incredibly slow process and one that, hits the pocketbook pretty hard. So when we do sell, again, that money goes directly back into what we're doing here with the donkeys. It is furthering our attempts to do AI. It is paying for plasma. It is paying for, hay production, all of the things. None of it is going to buy me, a new vest or anything. It's all going back to the donkeys.
Sure.
So, it makes it a big, big challenge for us because I think so many folks that, want to raise livestock, want to be able to, make money doing it and it not just be a passion project. So it's a challenge to find those folks that A, have the means to do it and B, have the desire. It's a struggle and it's something that we try really hard to get others involved. The initial cost is high. That's another thing that kind of limits folks to get into it. And so there are a lot of barriers to get others involved, and it is at times overwhelming. I would love to have, there be 20, 30 people out there breeding Poitou. That's just not the case. And so we try really, really hard on social media to, get people involved. We always welcome visitors to the farm. I think what is so important is for people to get their hands on these animals, to see them in person and what they're all about and what we're trying to do here. But it's a challenge and it's not a money-making venture for us. Not yet anyway.
Sure.
It's interesting listening to you talk about the AI thing because, we have had American saddlebred horses in our family for all of my life, ever since my dad bought us our first bottle baby. And, even AI with that breed of horses can be really difficult because that window is very short and a lot of times the AI is not successful. And, because of a lot of different factors, which it sounds very similar to what you are experiencing. And you're right, it is incredibly heartbreaking when you go to all the legwork to get that all set up and get the window and the timing right, and then it produces no result. And so I can really empathize with that process because we've had many, many failures over the years with our horses. And, we don't have some of the what it sounds like a little bit of genetic anomaly inside the Poitou, that they are incredibly unique in a lot of different ways. I wonder, do you feel that some of those anomalies have come through its history of maybe being kind of bred down, and now you're trying to revitalize the breed, and has had that caused some genetic anomalies that maybe were not present in that original strain? Have you been able to figure out where that all is coming from?
Not exactly, but I have some theories. So when the first Poitou, or the largest amount of them, were imported into the United States from France, I don't think the best animals were being turned loose of. So I don't want to call them culls, but I think they were culls. Probably not the best examples of the breed for whatever reason. And I think that, you know, we are still kind of paying the price on that. What I found is that Poitou in the United States are a little bit smaller than Poitou in France, especially being able to go over there and seeing those animals in person. So that has really affected our breeding program here in trying to really breed to French standards to try to get that foal exactly where it needs to be conformation wise. But I think, when you start off with possibly not the best examples of the breed, it takes a very long time. And because breeding Poitou is such a slow and laborious process,
Mhm.
it takes years to be able to produce a foal that you feel like, okay, we finally got there.
Mhm.
We're able to do that now. And the foals we're producing are big and beautiful and thriving. So, but I think that was part of it. We just didn't start with the best stock.
Yeah.
Also, some of the original importers um, may not have done everything correctly or done right by the breed. And so there was a lot of things that occurred that may not have moved conformation or the breed forward here in the United States. And I don't, that's all in the past, and I
Right.
don't want, I don't want to really go there, but we have worked really, really hard, and we have some great, great partners. I would be remiss if I did not mention the Livestock Conservancy. They are a nonprofit that deals exclusively with heritage breed livestock, and they have been just incredible partners with us and the other breeders moving the breed forward here in the United States. So, um, you know, there are a lot of reasons, and I can't pinpoint one, but
Yeah.
I think just starting with kind of subpar animals may have been a big contributing factor.
Yeah. Is the Poitou donkey, kind of the group of you that is working so hard to really save and maybe even revitalize it to its original glory? There's other breeds that really protect the breed type, like the Frisian horse, the Icelandic horse. There's a lot of those that have incredibly strict breed standards in terms of, if you do this, then you do not fall within our group, and there's a financial kind of penalty on the value of those animals. Are you finding that as you get more and more donkeys on the ground, that you're starting to be able to recognize where your group is going to hold itself at this level, and if you go out and try to muddy down the breed and go against what you're doing, that there's going to be some, perhaps it's not going to be like so politically correct to do that? Are you starting to organize yourself around that?
Yes, yes. Great question. 100%. So I mentioned the Livestock Conservancy, and what we have done about 4 or 5 years ago, we funded through them the U.S. Poitou donkey census. And we collected DNA samples from every Poitou we could find here in the United States. That all of those samples went to Texas A&M University to a geneticist there named Gus Cothran, who has a lot of experience with Poitou donkeys. And so that started this whole process of not only understanding how many animals we were working with here in the United States, but then allowed us to create the Poitou Donkey Registry of America. And that kicked off last year. So now we have a registry, which we had not had. And also, we are really, really close, I would say, within the next 3 weeks to formally announce our breed association.
Awesome.
Which we will have incredibly strict conformation standards that need to be adhered to. We have a very strict breed up program where you're using a pure Poitou jack on maybe a high percentage genet, and how that whole process works. So again, with the Livestock Conservancy being really helping us, being those experts and moving this forward, we're at a place where we can now, instead of just having, individuals kind of freewheeling it out there, now we are much more organized and have a very distinct path forward on what we're doing. Again, there's very few of us in it, but the ones that are doing it, we're trying to do it the best way possible and as organized as possible.
Wow. Well, when you all start having the Poitou futurity, we will have to have another show, because I cannot imagine how cute that would be to have, yearling Poitous in a show ring with all their little cuteness.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
That would be pretty awesome.
So, this sounds like, a passion on steroids to me, honestly. So I have to ask, is this your full-time gig, or are you doing something else that is supplementing all of this activity? Because this to me sounds like you are probably more than consumed with it, but in listening to you talk about just the cost of it, I have to ask, are you supplementing it with off-farm income?
Yes.
Yeah.
100% yes. So if Chris and I could be farmers and raise livestock and make a living at it at the small acreage that we have, we would do it all day long. It's our passion. We love doing it. I know a lot of folks think we're crazy in what we do, but it's not self-sustaining. And so our day job, we own and operate a music festival company for high school bands, choirs, and orchestras in Winter Park, Colorado. It's called the Winter Park Ski Music Festival. And so we bring these music programs up to Winter Park, Colorado. They compete against each other. And while they're there, their recreation is skiing, snowboarding, or tubing, that kind of stuff. And we do that every spring and have roughly 2,000 to 5,000 music students up to Winter Park every spring. So
Wow.
That is what pays the bills. Unfortunately, I wish we could just raise Poitou and live happy as clams, but that's just not the reality. So yeah.
Wow.
So I'm curious, not to veer too far off of the Poitous, but I'm curious about the music festival and how that. One of my sons is a performance music major at the University of Wyoming, and super passionate about music. So how did that all get started? And tell us a little bit more about the festival that goes along with that.
So Chris's mother was a band mom when Chris was back in high school, and they took some trips. I think they went to Colorado Springs, and she was a quite the entrepreneur. And she got home and thought, you know what, I can do that better. And so she had a brother that lived in Winter Park, Colorado, and they put together this music festival for high school bands, choirs, and orchestras. And it just kind of exploded because that was back in the 80s, and there weren't the options for travel for high schools that there are today. It was, you went to Disney, you maybe went to New York, and Winter Park was one of those options. And so she did that for years and years. And oh gosh, I would say 15 years ago, I was working as a retail manager, and Chris was bank vice president, and they both of those jobs were just sucking the life out of us, and pretty miserable. And she was ready to retire, so we bought the business from her, and we've been doing it ever since. So
Wow.
Oh,
it
yeah.
really
Wow.
was her vision. And she was just the type of lady that thought, I can do this better and make a much better experience for these kids.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah, that's really cool. That is not what I expected you to say, Patrick. Like, not at all. I had a lot of ideas about what I thought maybe you for your off-farm job, but that was not on my list.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you, it's a lot of work, but it is incredibly rewarding. Music students, as you know, Ron, are good kids, and they are bright, and just to have them, a lot of them have never been to the mountains, certainly not, right there on the Continental Divide in Colorado. And some have never seen snow before. We get a lot of groups from Florida, South Texas, and just to see their faces when they get off that bus and they're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And then maybe to give them the opportunity to ski. Skiing has gotten so expensive, and we're able to get groups in to Winter Park Resort there at a much reduced cost, just based on the volume that we do. So it may be giving that music student an experience they may never have had, and that's really rewarding for us.
I think that's a great reminder also that I think that the American way is let's create as much financial independence as possible, but music students, probably much like Poitou breeders and growers, do it because they're passionate about it.
Sure.
And when there's all you have to do is travel to Nashville or to Austin or Los Angeles or New York and discover how many ultra talented musicians there are in the world that the world will never know.
Right.
These kids really do that because they love it, and it's a passion for them. So I'm sure the two really probably fit hand in glove, so to speak. That and I think it's important to really remind kids that it's okay to pursue your passion and do what you truly love, and to put your life's energy and your dedication to that, because that does make a difference. I mean, it makes a difference to the community in which you live, and certainly what you're doing, I think, has to be having an impact on your community, and has to be having an impact, obviously, on the Poitou breed and the future of that. And someone has to start it somewhere. And I just find it really fascinating, and I love the conversation that I think that you just keep coming back to. And the general theme of this whole thing is that you're doing it not because you're getting rich doing it, but you're doing it because you truly love it. And I think that, gollies, wouldn't the general population be a lot happier if we just truly did things that we really loved, and something that we just truly could immerse ourselves into, because we found a passion. I just think that's a super important reminder. So thanks for being an example of that.
No, well, thank you. That's a huge compliment. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really funny that you do that because Ron and I are both we have backgrounds in music. So, and it
Okay.
was, someone that took the time to produce summer programs when I was in high school
Mhm.
that led me to study music in college and scholarship in college. And so, I just think about all of those kids that you are really creating a platform that they can see the investment of time in music as something that can produce great adults, quite honestly. Because like when
Mhm.
I look at what I do right now, had I not studied what I studied in college, which had nothing to do with business, it had nothing to do with anything, but it made, it created all the skills that you need to be really incredibly astute at dealing with people.
Mhm.
And so I just think about all, if you think about 2,000 plus kids every single year getting kind of a transformative life experience, I applaud that wholeheartedly and just really thank you for that, since there's so many music programs that are just going by the wayside,
Mhm.
um, you know, in lieu of other things that are equally important, but you hate to see our arts, die on the vine because maybe they're not financially the biggest moneymaker. And so just truly thank you for that effort around
Mhm.
that.
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's cool. We've been doing it long enough now that we see uh, kids that, we had come up to Winter Park as part of their band or choir, and now they are professors in college. And, you know, just sharing that passion for the arts
Yeah.
is really amazing. And again, like I said, music kids are good kids. They are sharp and smart, and it kind of uh, it kind of lets you take a breath and say, okay, maybe the future isn't quite as bad as I thought it was be. These kids are pretty darn good. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
lucky that we get to work with music students, and their directors also just stand-up people.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, to
Yeah.
switch back over to Poitou as we kind of come to the end, is there anything else? We will obviously put all the links in the show notes about how to get a hold of you, how to get a hold of more information about the Poitou. But is there anything else that you would like to share about this amazing animal that you are, so 100% committed to? But is there anything else that we should know about them?
Yeah, there's a lot. But I think what's important, and what I want to be careful about is, we talk about all these challenges and all of these, uh, you know, road bumps or hurdles that we have with the breed. Um, you know, I think it's important uh, to be honest. They aren't the easiest breed to raise. There are some challenges, but I don't want to scare people away from maybe getting involved. And you know, I I 100% believe that if you were to come visit us and let me show you these donkeys in person. Or if you're in an area that has Poitou donkeys in the United States, go visit one, get your hands on it, talk to the owners. Uh, the good so outweighs the bad. Um, the challenges, yes, they're there, but they're also, how do I say it? Some of these challenges have really been enriching, and like you feel, okay, we figured that out. We made a difference.
Mhm.
And I think again, I don't want to scare people away from the breed because they're incredible animals. Um, I, you know, I want people to get involved. I want people to be actively breeding. I want all of our hard work not to be for nothing. I want there to be an exit strategy as well.
Mhm.
I'm not a spring chicken. I don't plan on retiring from Poitou anytime soon, but I would love to know and sleep better at night if I knew that, boy, we've got this figured out, and Poitou are going to exist long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
Uh, I
Well,
think,
I do think you're really smart to lead with that. Like if you look at all the, somewhat large mistakes that have happened because people do get incredibly connected to animals. And you just look at social media particularly, right? It puts out like, here is a Belgian Malinois that is 100% trained and can climb up a wall and jump off a tree and protect you and snuggle with your kids. And everybody goes, we want dogs like that. Let's go get them. And then they are shocked to find that they are a high drive working breed. They need constant attention, stimulation, and training. And then, those animals end up somewhere unfortunate where they never should have been. And you
right,
see that even with like, the cute cuddly breeds, everybody wants a Newfoundland dog until you find out that they drool nonstop and it sticks to the walls and they shed, a full coat of hair every day. And
yeah,
then they end up somewhere unfortunate. And so, I do think that is part of incredibly responsible animal husbandry is to say, yes, they are beautiful and cute and sweet, but here is what it is required to care and maintain them in a way that will ensure that you are not trying to offload those animals and put them in a situation that they did not deserve. So I do think it's very smart to lead with the ugly, because if you're supposed to own one, the ugly will be much like what you feel it is a challenge to overcome, and it's not prohibitive in terms of being completely committed to them. So I think it's wise, because you can certainly do the high drive marketing that says, look how cute they are and they're rare and they're gentle and they're sweet and their babies are adorable, come get one. And you probably could financially be better off, but then again, you'd probably also be having a whole lot of people calling you saying, come get my donkey. And
right.
I think
You
it's
know,
wise. I think it's wise.
yeah, I think that kind of goes all the way back to Fifi. She ended up in a exotic animal auction. Somebody
Yep.
didn't want to deal with her.
Mhm.
And I just think, the challenges are there for sure, but the reward is so huge. It's just, again, it's just been the most incredible experience. And I think one thing that's super important that I want people to understand is that while we may not have had mentors when we started, um, I want our one of my biggest things is I will tell a prospective owner everything. I am available 24/7. I want to be that mentor for folks that are seriously interested in raising this breed. Again, it's something that we didn't have and we had to learn the hard way. I don't
Yeah.
want somebody else to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to give you every shortcut that we know. And if we don't know, I will ask somebody that I think does. And if that
Yeah.
means a phone call to France, I'll call France. Um, we will be that partner for you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I will
Love
tell
it.
you, it is very compelling. And there's a part of me that is like, I just want to go get a donkey so I can hang out with Patrick and like go have fun.
Come on, Amy, come on. Do
Goodness.
it.
Patrick, thanks for all your insight, and truly, I think that uh, just the example shows that you can do some things in life that make you feel fulfilled, and I think that's really what it's about. And knowing, like you said, that you can make a difference is, I think it's outstanding. I think it's outstanding and a perspective that I think we all need.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with that, are we ready to do a little question and answer? And let's see who
Patrick,
will
this is
win.
where you get an opportunity to Poitou stomp me.
Stop.
I'll be devastated if I can't. Okay.
Well, okay. So, here is our questions. I actually have two questions. And, as I always try to do, I try to stick with the theme. So our theme today is donkeys. And so if we are ready, here is my first question. How many donkeys, and not Poitou specific, but how many donkeys are in the US?
Oh,
And if I really stump you, I can give you ranges.
hang on.
I might add, while Patrick's thinking, that the only thing I really know about donkeys is Donkey Kong, but that involves a gorilla for some reason. So I'm not sure why you actually call it Donkey Kong. And
Well,
so I think I don't even know if I have a guess on this, Rena.
okay, well, let me give you some ranges. Is
Okay,
it
please.
100 to 200, 200 to 350,000? Sorry, these are thousands. So 100,000 to
Okay.
200,000, 200,000 to 350,000, or 350,000 to 500,000.
I have to say it's the smallest number. That
I'm
would be
gonna
my
go
guess.
with the second.
It is actually the second. There are approximately 300,000 donkeys in the United States.
Wow.
Now, would anyone like to extrapolate how many of those donkeys are wild?
Oh,
Oh, wow.
I just was reading about BLM donkeys.
I bet it's well over 50%.
I like 100,000
We're
BLM.
very close, Patrick. It is approximately 83,000
Okay.
wild donkeys.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Okay.
very good, though, Patrick. Nice job. Okay, so here is the second question. What is one major function that wild donkeys provide?
Major
It's
Well,
actually
functions.
super
no,
cool.
normally you only hear the bad things that they allegedly do. Um, I'm gonna say maybe scrape away the snow to let other wildlife eat.
That is so close. You almost nailed it. It is that they will dig wells that provide water to other species.
That's cool.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. That is, I was going to guess maybe eat varieties of plants that other animals don't eat, but dig
Well,
wells.
that probably is true as well, but they actually will dig up water that provides water to other species. So I thought that was very cool.
Donkeys are the coolest.
Donkeys are cool.
Obviously, they're not running. There's not very many of them that are doing that on the BLM land in Wyoming because that hole would be pretty deep.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
For
Really
sure.
fascinating. Those are great questions, Rena.
I
Good
know
job.
the donkey dive actually was very fun when I got looking into that. I was like, there's a whole bunch of things that I don't know about donkeys. So, well, Patrick,
Wow.
again, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been a fabulous kickoff to my morning. I am so excited about what you are doing. We wish you nothing but the very best. This is probably going to be one that we're going to have to do a follow-up with you in a year or so and just see what amazing things have happened once you get everything organized with your association and your standards. And we will just be cheering you on. And thank you again so much for your time this morning.
Well, it has been truly my pleasure. And again, anytime I can tell people about Poitou, I'm thrilled to do it. And Ron and Rena, thank you. Yeah, would love to have you back when we get that mule full on the ground, and away we go. So again, thank you so much. Truly an honor.
I hope
Thank
we
you
have
so
the
much.
honor of visiting you sometime.
Please do, anytime.
Yeah.
Oh, Ron, I mapped it out. I know where he is from you. So believe me, we've done the map. So if
I'm
we ever
down.
decide
Let's
we're
do it.
going, we may have to do the next episode live on the farm
Oh my
with
gosh.
Poitou in tow. That would be amazing.
Awesome.
Do
Awesome.
it.
Thanks
right,
again,
thank you
Patrick.
so
Take care.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Ag Inspo podcast with Ron Rabo and Rena Striegel. Find Ag Inspo on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere you find your favorite podcasts. For more information about today's guest or the resources referenced today, please see the show notes listed below. Join us next time when we will meet another inspirational leader who has taken those small steps to bring about really big change.